God, we thank you for this day that you blessed us with. The precious opportunity to experience the atmosphere of worship and praise. We are grateful that you decided to protect us from dangers seen and unseen. And we gather to this place tonight simply to tell you thank you. Now, Lord, it is preaching time. I beg you to stand in me and speak through me. Allow me tonight to express publicly what you and I have already shared privately. In Jesus' name, amen. Will you help me thank God for your wonderful pastor? I pray that you will be Pastor Sean Glover. I am just elated beyond expression to be across the water here in the great state of New York in the wonderful place of Ossining. It is my first time in this wonderful place, and I'm grateful to God that these last 10 years, with Pastor and I just recently have been able to reconnect. We marched across the stage of Virginia Union University together on May the 7th, 2004. And we've been friends ever since. And so I'm just excited and delighted that if the Lord landed him right here, this close to the Mount Calvary Church in Englewood, New Jersey. So I'm glad to have a friend and a brother this close. Amen. Amen. Please forgive me if I sound a little hoarse. I've been in revival this week and down in North Carolina. I just landed at 2 o'clock this afternoon and made my way here. And our church is scheduled to be in Cleveland this Sunday. So Mount Calvary's not with me tonight. But our minister of music is here. Minister Scott Cumberbatch has been able to work across the board. Thank God for his presence. Well, let's go to work. Will you meet me in Luke chapter 7? Luke chapter 7, a very familiar story found at verse 11 and concluding with verse number 15. That is Luke chapter 7, beginning at verse 11 and concluding with verse 15. I'm just so grateful that your pastor thought enough of me to let me come first. I saw the lineup on Instagram and immediately started shaking in my boots. I know Pastor Faison will be here next week. You would have forgotten that I was here. But I promise you it's going to be all right. Luke chapter 7, beginning at verse 11 and concluding with verse number 15. I have the English Standard Version, but as long as your copy says Bible, you are absolutely fine. Soon afterward, he went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a great crowd went with him. As he drew near to the gate of the town, behold, a man who had died was being carried out, the only son of his mother. And she was a widow, and a considerable crowd from the town was with her. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her, and said to her, "Do not weep." Then he came up and touched the bier, and the bearers stood still. And he said, "Young man, I say to you, arise." And the dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother. Now you look at verse 12. As he drew near to the gate of the town, behold, a man who had died was being carried out, the only son of his mother. And she was a widow, and a considerable crowd from the town was with her. For these moments that we share, I simply want to tag this text, living on empty. Living on empty. You may have your seat. I've been having some vocal trouble, so you can give me a whole lot more of these monitors. I promise I'll be good to go. About 9 years ago, I found myself trapped in Terminal B of the Philadelphia International Airport. It was there that a 45-minute flight turned into a 5-hour delay. Bored completely out of my mind, I decided to start people watching. While I was watching people angry and expressing their disappointment, there walked a man that I recognized but had never met. It was Dr. Wayne Cordero, pastor of the New Hope Christian Church in Honolulu, Hawaii. I recognized his face from several book jackets and figured I would probably never get a chance to meet him, so this was my only opportunity. I walked up to him and I introduced myself. I said, "Pastor, you don't know who I am. I'm a fellow pastor as well, much younger than you, but I would love to know if you could give me any insight, considering at the time his church was the fastest growing church in the United States." Just when he was prepared to respond, the announcement came that the storm had passed and his flight was cleared to board. He looked at me and said, "Young pastor, I wish I could stay and communicate with you a whole lot longer, but I've got to get on my plane." He reached in his bag and pulled out a book. He said, "I'm not here on coincidence. I'm on a book tour. I've just released my latest work and I'm going to cite it." He said, "But do me a favor, when you read it, don't start at chapter 1, start at the introduction." I promised that I would. I finally got on my plane. I buckled my seatbelt. I took out the book. It was entitled Leading on Empty. I opened it up in the introduction as he had instructed. The third page, the second paragraph, he writes that one day he was preparing to preach for a national conference. He got up that morning, went down to the lobby to prepare to set out on his routine 5-mile run. He said something crazy happened. That 5 blocks into his run, he found himself sitting on a curb with his hands in his head, crying uncontrollably. He writes that it was the result of the fact that it was the first time he had to face the reality that he had nothing left. Pastor Jones, I would like to suggest to us tonight that you don't have to be a pastor of a megachurch, nor a successful CEO to find yourself empty. The truth of the matter is, for the child of God, the church forces you and I to become professional phonies. Because it's only in the church that we are forbidden to look as empty as we feel. We're expected to lift our hands when our hands are too heavy. We're expected to open our mouths when we have nothing kind to say. We're expected to put a smile on our face when really we want to cuss somebody out. Because the church demands that we try to outpraise our pain. Therefore, when we look through that lens, Luke chapter 7 is a chapter filled with pain. It's in Luke 7 that John sends disciples to Jesus to ask, "Are you the one, or shall we search for another?" It's in Luke 7 that those who are spiritual try to set Jesus up by inviting him to dinner and also giving invitation to a known prostitute to see how he will handle the fact that there's a town prostitute at the table. But in the beginning of Luke chapter 7, between verses 1 through 10, there is the problematic, painful proclamation of a centurion soldier who has a sick servant, who sends for Jesus to come and visit his house to lay hands on his servant that the servant might recover. But when the people go to Jesus to tell him about this sick centurion soldier's servant, they tell him, "Jesus, you ought to come to his house. He's worthy of your visitation because he's a good man. He loves our country and he helped us build our synagogue." But when Jesus comes close, are y'all interested? To where the man is, the man's family and friends run out to the man and run out to Jesus and tell Jesus, "Do not trouble yourself to come to the house because he is not worthy of your visitation." Now there's a problem here in the passage because it opens by saying that the reports are that the man is worthy. But it closes that particular pericope by saying the man is not worthy. Which one is it? When you look at the text backwards, you'll discover what's really taking place. When Jesus comes close to the house, the man sends out people who know him best to tell Jesus, "I'm not worthy of your visitation." Now here's the problem. The man understands the rumor that has gone out about him, and this man teaches us something powerful about life. In the eyesight of many, you are only as good as your last good deed. Look at what they say about him. They said, Jesus, you ought to come to his house. He's worthy, watch this, because he's a good man. He loves our country, and he helped us build our synagogue. The man understands that the only reason I have a good rapport with them is because everything I do benefits them. Now, I don't know how it works on this side of the Hudson, but where I live, I've discovered that there are always individuals who will be connected to you as long as they don't have to contribute. So they'll ride with you as long as you buy the gas. They'll go out to eat with you as long as you pick up the bill. Be careful who you let in the area of your soul, because some people come for what they can take rather than what they can give. Watch what the man says. He says this word, Lord, I'm not worthy of your visitation. And watch this. I don't need you to come to my house. But there's only one thing I need you to do. Send your word. All right, I'm going to treat y'all like Mount Calvary. The first time never works. Let me try it one more time. He says, I don't need you to come. But if you would just send your word. Start up and I'm going to tell you tonight, I can't wait until the word of God comes back inside. Where we can pack the pews, not because of a grand march, not because of an anniversary, not because there's some fried chicken in the fellowship hall, but because we have an appetite for the word of God. There are a few of y'all in here tonight that don't mind admitting I'm here for the word. I didn't come to hear you. I didn't know who you were. I came because it was revival and I knew the word would be preached. Because I'm a horrible person when I don't get it. So if you really want to be cool with me, you better make sure I get my daily dose of the word. Because it's the word of God that keeps me from losing my mind. It's the word of God that keeps me from slapping folks. It's the word of God that keeps me from putting my shoes on my head and my hat on my feet. It's the word of God that keeps me in perfect peace. Same shifts he needs to pray, and 25 miles later or 4 days later, he's on his way into a city called Nain. But while he's on his way in, there's a funeral procession on their way out. Now, what's interesting in the passage is that the funeral procession is led by a woman who is a widow who is about to bury her son. Now, it's a challenge here because when you look at where they are, they're not in just any old city, they're in the city of Nain. The name Nain in the Greek means beauty. But the only reason Nain can preserve their reputation as being a beautiful city is because they have a law that forbids anyone from burying any dead thing inside the city limits. Now, it's troubling to me because while we're talking about a city, it looks like a sick sanctuary. How is it that you would ask God to bless you with more members, but then write rules to make the people uncomfortable and not want to stay? Okay, let me show you what it looks like. This is the kind of church that prays, Lord, fill up our building. But the moment he starts sending people in, you start breaking out your tape measure to measure the length of somebody's skirt, the height of their heel. You got a count of tattoos and piercings. But if you ask God to send people, you don't get to control who he sends. But matter of fact, what you ought to do is say, Lord, you can trust us that whoever you send, we're going to love them the way you want them loved. We're going to pray for them the way you commissioned us to pray. We're going to lead them the way you want them led. But guess what? God's church is at a deficit because we only like to worship with people who fit the mold of what we like to look at. The city has a rule that even though you reside here, you cannot grieve here. So here Jesus is on the way in, but here comes this funeral procession on the way out. Now the Bible does not waste words. I don't want you to miss this. I promise I won't hold you too long. That this funeral procession is in honor of a young man who has died. We don't know how he died. We don't know how young he is. All we know is there's a tragedy. But I would suggest to you tonight, church, that the tragedy of the tragedy is not that the young man lost his life, but that his mother lives a life of loss. She is a widow. In ancient times, women were forbidden to work, which meant their income and identity was exclusively linked to whom she was married to. So if she is a widow, she already has a lost identity. But as long as she has a son, the son is responsible for securing her future. But here she is in between a lost identity and now a dead future. What do you do when people don't see you as a person, but they see you for what you do that benefits them? So they don't know your name. You're just the person who sings the song they like. They don't know your name. They just know you're the usher that smiles every Sunday. And as long as they don't have to have personal contact with you, they don't treat you like a person. They treat you like a position. Here she is, lost identity, and now a lost future. Can I drop this bomb on you? She's living on empty. Now, what messed me up, church, is that Jesus could have shown up sooner. But I find it interesting and ironic that he waits to show up when she has nothing left. She's on her way to say her last goodbye to her tomorrow. And he invades her today before she gets a chance to pass out about her tomorrow. Can I help somebody here tonight? Let me put this sermon in a sentence and I tell you, God enjoys invading our empty spaces. Now, I've heard people all these 24 years of ministry tell me, Reverend, I just don't get that much out of church. And it took me a long time to find the appropriate response. It's right here in Luke 7. Maybe you didn't get enough out of church because there's too much still in you. Because if the church is the filling station, what happens is between the benediction and next week's invocation, you're going to catch enough hell on the job, at home, with your family, with your friends, that's going to empty you out of everything that you were filled up with. So that when you drag yourself back in here, you'll be the equivalent of an empty pitcher before a full fountain. Let me see if I can pull the house. There are about 12 of y'all. I promise to make number 13. Who are able to say, Reverend, I'm here because I need to be refilled. I came in here tonight because I need God to drop something on me, even on a Wednesday night. I can't wait till Sunday morning. You don't know what I went through Monday morning. You don't know what I went through last night. I need God to fill me up again so I won't lose my mind. Jesus waits until she's empty. And watch what he does. I don't want to hold you long. Watch what he does. He walks up to her and he whispers his word to her. Do not weep. Now, there's no reason to tell somebody not to cry if they're not crying. So here he sees the tears and he attempts to treat the tears even though he doesn't give her a reason why she ought to stop crying. Okay, let me try again. He speaks, but he keeps on still. I thought it was unfair that I could hear the Lord saying on the wings of eternity, it's impossible to reason with an emotional mind. And so he drops the word on her, and he keeps on walking. Here it is. If she could see who was in front of her, she would not worry about what's behind her. Let me give it to you, Spencer style. Don't be so gripped by the grief of what's gone that you cannot see what God is trying to give. Look at where she is. She has not yet arrived to the cemetery. She's on the pathway toward the cemetery. But she's on the same road as Jesus. And because of her crisis, she's on a collision course with the Christ. But because she's so gripped by what's gone, she cannot see what's coming. I'm talking to somebody tonight. You on the new job complaining about how you got done dirty on the old job. There's some brother in New York tonight who's complaining to his new wife about his ex-wife. There's some sister who's bashing the new man over how you got mistreated by the last man. Whatever you do, don't you be so caught up in the thing that crushed you yesterday that you can't see what God needs you to catch today. Here she is on a collision course with Jesus and can't see. So he tells her, stop crying. Watch this. Because she's having trouble seeing through her tears. Somebody in this place tonight, I know they hurt you. I know they stabbed you in the back. I know they stole your money. But I promise you, if you can stop crying long enough, God can give you clarity. Let me tell you, if I've never learned anything else, I've learned this. Never look at the negative. Yeah, I know they stole you $25, but guess what the good news is? You bought them for $25. I know they stabbed you in the back, but guess what? You healed and you still living. You couldn't go. You survived their best shot. I know they talk bad about you, but guess what? In their negative conversation about you, all it did was expose the people who aren't really for you in the first place. I know they said you couldn't make it. I know that they said you weren't qualified, but guess what? They give you the proper publicity to make sure that everybody can see your good qualities, even through negative conversation. Let me see if there's not 15 y'all in here who have that testimony. I thank God for my enemies. I thank God for everybody who talked me dirty. I thank God for how they tried to do me wrong, because in all of that, you didn't kill me, you helped construct me. You helped make me stronger. You helped make me wiser. You sharpened my discernment and you deepened my faith. He says to her, don't cry. Then he walks up to the casket and lays his hands on the casket and makes an announcement. Young man, I, Lego Aguero, say to you, arise. Now I don't want you to miss this scene. Jesus is talking to a dead man. Last time I checked, dead folk don't heal. Watch, here's where my shout is. I hope you don't miss it. First thing he does before he talks to the dead man is he lays his hands on the casket. I'm going somewhere here, y'all. Because according to the Levitical law, the rabbis are forbidden to touch any dead thing. Yeah. And they're forbidden to touch anything that's containing a dead thing. Which means the religious law says for the priest, keep your hands off. But when Jesus shows up, he puts his hands on. Now that might not mean much to you, but as an individual who knows what it feels like to have everybody around you tell good people to keep their hands off of you, the fact that somebody would tell other people not to bother with you and not to fool with you, all they did was clear the pathway to make sure they accelerated the scholarship you're about to receive. And that's the main one who can put his hands on you. Now, I ain't looking for perfect people. I'm just looking for people who make progress, who are able to say, yeah, I'm that person. My reputation wasn't that great. My character might have been in question. But guess what? When everybody walked out, that's when the Lord walked in. And I thank God tonight that he was able to look past them and lay his hands on me. And you tell somebody beside you and tell them, yep, that's me. I ain't about to testify what I've done wrong, where I've been wrong. But just know that because everybody else walked out, the Lord walked in, and I am who I am because he laid his hands on me. Watch. He lays his hands on the casket, and he says, young man, I say, Lego to you, Aguero, rise. Now, he doesn't just tell him to get up, he tells him to rise. Gero in the Greek paints the portrait. Rise the way water rises. Rise the way smoke rises. Rise the way heat rises. When water rises, you can't stop it. When smoke rises, you can't pull it down. When heat rises, you can't even see it. Why would Jesus tell him to rise like water, smoke, and heat? It's simply because if he just tells the boy to get up, he knows that if you get up, you are going to completely disturb this entire funeral, because they are not going to be able to handle you getting out of the box they put you in. Church folk, don't understand. Okay. Your pastor and I, we had a chance to walk on the hallowed grounds and dear old halls of Virginia Union, and it was there that we learned that about 23 years ago in Japan, they had a terrible problem with the loss of watermelons in transport. The oblong structures would just roll off the cart, smash, and they couldn't sell it. So what the engineers did is they went into the lab and they figured out a way to make square watermelons. They did was, they took the soil, they planted the seeds, and as it began to sprout, they would transplant the soil into a glass square container 5 inches thick. So that as the watermelon would begin to grow, the pressure from the glass would squeeze it into a perfect square. Wonderful for the watermelon farmers, growers, and sellers, because with a perfect square, they had very minimal watermelon loss. And I got thinking about that thing, and I said to myself, if somebody would squeeze a watermelon into a box, that must also mean, on occasion, in certain sanctuaries, there's an attempt to squeeze worshipers into a box. You know, when you get ready to lift your hands and somebody tell you put your hand down, they're squeezing you. When you stand up and they tell you, could you please sit down? I can't see. They're squeezing you. When you lift your voice and they tell you, you're just too loud, they're squeezing you. But you need to let some folk know, I was not made to fit in your box. The reason why I can burst out the box is because of what God did for me when I was broken, when I was beaten down, and I didn't believe I could make it. And the fact that I got breath in my body and I'm in my right mind. Matter of fact, I came here on purpose to shout my way out that box. Now, if you don't like noise, I saw on the way in, there is a library down the street. But in the sanctuary, we have a mandate: enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him and bless his name, for the Lord is good. Now, I came to tell you tonight, Star, if you know he's good, you ought not sit there like you've been bad. Let everybody on your road know this road right here, this road, this is a grateful road, because as good as God has been to me, I refuse to let you keep me quiet. Come on, tell your neighbor, tell him, break the box. It's like, said somebody free here tonight, anybody here other than me ever been told you don't fit in? The next time somebody tell you don't fit in, just lift your hands and tell the Lord thank you. Because if you don't fit in, that means they already know we can't squeeze you in our box. No, you're better than our box. You're bigger than our box. Here it is, you're more blessed than our box. That's why I'm not trying to dress for your approval. That's why I'm not trying to drive what you can applaud. That's why I don't live in a house that you'll clap over. I am who I am because of who God created me to be. And if you don't like who I am, I can introduce you to some folk you might like. But what you're not about to do is put your thumb on my neck. He says, young man, rise. Get out of that box. I'm done tonight when I tell you this thing messed me up. The boy sits up, begins to speak. Now hold on, there's a problem in the passage because Jesus just told him to get up. But the boy got up and then he spoke up. Y'all didn't catch it? Okay, let me open the window so you can see. The boy starts speaking, but Jesus didn't tell him to speak. He just told him to rise. Now, how are you rising and talking, but Jesus only told you to rise? And I said, I wonder what in the world, what would make this boy talk? And then I could hear the Holy Spirit say, well, son, if you just got woken up in the middle of your funeral, nobody would have to tell you to talk either. Now, y'all don't believe me, but let me help you. At the deepest point of sleep, you are 95% dead, which means you're closer to death than you are to life. So if you opened your eyes this morning, and when you looked up and you saw the top of your bedroom, and it wasn't the top of your casket, that means you had a chance to rise. Now, it doesn't make sense to me for you to open your eyes in the morning, get dressed, go to work all day, leave work, come to church, and sit in God's house like you didn't survive something. Are there any survivors in the building tonight who are ashamed to tell somebody, I'm so glad I survived another day? And text says Jesus took the boy and gave him to his mother. Legendary Alexander McLaren said Jesus had to snatch the boy out of the grip of death and lay him into the lap of life. Translation, Jesus was saying to death, I did not give you permission to take him, and so I'm not going to ask for your permission to take him back. Isn't it good to know that even when folk are ready to say ashes to ashes and dust to dust, the Lord says, not yet. I came to talk to somebody in here tonight that you came here with your heart broken, your mind miserable, because somebody pronounced death over your dream, pronounced death over your vision, pronounced death over your future. But God sent me on assignment tonight to let you know it doesn't matter what they said, you ain't in the ground yet. And if they ain't pulled out a shovel, I dare you to go on and shout it out and just let somebody know he got another chance. He's got another move, and I'm going to act like I got another opportunity. I wondered, Sean, what could this boy say? I had no clue. My sister emailed me this story a couple years ago about a woman in Melbourne, Australia. Noella Rukundo is her name. She had left Melbourne, gone back to her native home of Burundi for her stepmother's funeral. Her father called her husband called her and said, what you doing? She said, I don't feel well, so lay down. He said, it's too early. Why don't you go outside and get some fresh air? She went outside, but what she did not know was that he had hired a gang of thugs to abduct her. They snatched and grabbed her, tied her up and gagged her, took her to a warehouse, and when they pulled the gag off, she started pleading for her life. They said, ma'am, please be quiet. We're not going to hurt you. We don't believe in harming women and children. She said, why would you snatch me? They said, your husband hired us to kill you. She said, he would never do that. I've given him 4 beautiful children. He loves me. They said, watch this. They called him, put him on speakerphone and said, we have your wife. What do you want us to do? He responded with 2 words, kill her. She passed out from the shock. When she came to, they said, listen, we're going to let you go. We extorted another $20,000 out of your husband, but just don't tell anybody who we are. She said, I promise, I just want to live. They dropped her off 30 miles away from her hometown, near a payphone. Are y'all interested tonight? Yeah. She called her pastor, who was in the middle of writing her eulogy. Because her husband told everybody her car went off the cliff and exploded. The pastor said, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to send a car for you and have the car bring you to your funeral. She sat in the car across the street from her own funeral, watching her husband hug people and wish them well as they left. After the last person left, she got out the car, walked right up to him, and he looked at her in shock and horror, and she hit him with 3 words, surprise, I'm back. I came to tell you, maybe that's what that young man said. When he got out the casket, he probably walked up to the person who made the casket and said, surprise, I'm back. He probably looked at everybody who had written him off and said he never got to anything and said, surprise, I'm back. Now let me tell you what God wants you to know. Every chance you get, you want to surprise some folk. Walk up to some people you know can't stand you and just wave at them and tell them, I'm back. I've got about 12 of y'all in here tonight who are able to say, I thank God he's given me another chance. Look at what this boy had. He had been choked out from the world, but the Lord gave him another chance. Can I close here tonight when I tell you, I don't thank God for the first 10 chances. I thank God he gave me another chance. When your pastor and I were in school together, we had a professor tell us that God is the God of a second chance. It was your pastor said, no, that can't be true. Because if he was only the God of a second chance, we wouldn't be in class right now. He's not the God of a second chance. He's the God of another chance. Now do me a favor and tell about 5 people and tell them another chance. Come on, tell them I got another chance. Is there anybody in the building tonight?